Mwahaha! I finally managed to infiltrate Torn Apart's page, and now I'm gonna unleash my secret plan to make as many forgettable MCU movies as possible. Mwah! Yeah, this bit is not gonna keep going for a long time just because it's really cringy.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart. Today we're talking about the tiny ant people, Ant-Man Quantumania, aka an even worse movie than Thor Love and Thunder. Is it actually possible?
Beasts.
Also considering that it's for completely different reasons and maybe just one similar reason. I was looking out for reviews online for this movie, and I was specifically looking at American reviews and English reviews in general, and you guys were being way too nice. Like, you were calling this mediocre, you were saying that most audiences were calling it just okay, and no, this movie is not okay. Okay is Black Widow, okay is Shang-Chi, okay can be even She-Hulk. No, I cannot say that about She-Hulk. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But to say the Ant-Man Quantumania is an okay movie, like, you don't understand anything about movie making. Or maybe your expectations have gone so low that you're used to just gobbling up so much Marvel shit that you can't be trusted anymore to have an objective opinion about, like, Marvel movies.
What's going on? I think he's using his brain.
So this is what this video is gonna be about. We're gonna tear it apart because it really pissed me off. I was sitting in a theater the other day. Almost no one was laughing besides like 3 people sitting next to me, and they were laughing at the movie. They were not laughing with the movie. And I will talk about that later on. But just to say that the mood in that cinema theater was a tombstone. No one was laughing. No one was moving. There was no excitement whatsoever. And this is incredibly worrying for a movie that is supposed to start the new phase of the MCU. Okay, let's start.
I'm sorry, Cassie.
Give you like a broad look at all the things that go wrong when it comes to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. There is a lot of problems when it comes to the CGI. It is really interesting, and it kind of makes you want to spend so much time in the quantum realm. It kind of makes me want Scott to be lost in the quantum realm in the first movie, and then to build up Kang across the 3 different movies. That would actually made more sense. And I'm saying this mostly because we get so many different like monsters, creatures, and civilizations introduced in this movie here, and it's done so fast that you don't care about any of them. And that's a huge problem. Here I'm gonna be talking about Avatar, for example. Avatar dedicated 1 film per tribe, and it worked because of that, because we actually got the time to understand what the tribe was for, the members, and what their costumes were, and it made us care about these people even if they didn't have names. But here it's not the case. We get to meet so many different strange creatures, and actually it looks like they were just drafted from Thor Love and Thunder and the Guardians of the Galaxy like holiday special. It just feels like they were just taken from like the backgrounds in those movies and added here. They don't feel like they belong in an Ant-Man movie, and that's one of the main problems that this film has. This Ant-Man movie does not look like any of the other Ant-Man movies, and it's a big problem because you've established that the Ant-Man hero and trilogy is about low stakes stuff, and now we head into a 3rd movie where there is no establishment when it comes to all of the villains. There is no establishment when it comes to the universe itself because we were always in the human world, and now we have to deal with like global scale stuff. It's gonna destroy everything. It's gonna destroy all the multiverse, all the timelines. Time, space is gonna be dying. While the Ant-Man series was always like a funny little thing going on the sideways.
And I was like, damn, homie, she dumped it when you're on lockup? And he was like, yeah, I know, I thought I was gonna be with her forever, but now I'm all alone. And I was like, damn, homie, you know what? You gotta chin up because you'll find a new partner. But you know what? I'm Luis. And he says, you know what? I'm Scotty, and we're gonna be best friends.
Okay, hold on.
It felt even less impactful than Spider-Man, which is insane because Spider-Man is supposed to be like your neighborhood superhero kind of friend, and Ant-Man felt even more low stakes than that, which is insane. Just to say that it almost feels like they blended in Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Love and Thunder and added Ant-Man to the mix. It just feels like they don't belong together, and it's really weird. And you can tell that just by the performance that is being delivered when it comes comes to Scott's character. You can feel that he doesn't want to be there. You can feel that all he wants to do is just go home. He doesn't care about the quantum realm. He doesn't have any specific curiosity about it. And maybe that's one of the main problems of making him the main character and the main Ant-Man. Maybe it would have been interesting if Ant-Man was not in this film at all and we were following just the Wasp, because she seems to be a way more interesting character. Even though in this film she has almost nothing to do. In fact, I don't even know what they call the movie Ant-Man and Wasp, because she's just a supporting character. She doesn't feel like a real person anymore. People keep mentioning that she got a haircut as if it's like a new personality trait, like getting a haircut. Like, fuck off. And the problem also with the CGI is that there's almost no practical effects. It almost feels like it's really hard to tell whether any kind of costumes are real or fake. The mix just doesn't work at all, and there are some effects that are so bad that they can go up against like Shark Boy and Lava Girl stuff and Spy Kids 3D. Game over. Just to tell you how bad some of this is.
No school, no discipline, no rules. And most important, no dreams.
But at the same time, there is so much thing happening on the screen that it's almost impossible to be bored, and I feel like that's maybe why most people are saying that they feel really meh about this, because at the end of the day, when you throw a lot of things at the screen, some things are gonna stick. Same thing that they did with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, same thing that they did with Thor Love and Thunder. They were throwing so many things at us that at the end of the day, at least some things were gonna be received positively. But at the end of the day, there are so many things going on at the same time that it just sucks so hard. It looks almost like Strange Worlds, like the most recent Disney animated movie. Like, I literally was sitting there thinking, if they swapped some of the images from Strange Worlds and put them into Ant-Man Quantumania, I would not be able to tell the difference. Because it's kind of like the same concept, the same kind of action sequences, where you've got everything that is basically alive. Everything you can see is alive. It's a nice joke, it's an interesting thing to explore, but they don't give us the time to actually do it. Okay, let's get into spoilers right now, because I want to be talking about specific aspects in this movie that don't work. I actually had to take notes on my phone because I have way too many things that I want to talk about and discuss when it comes to this film here. And I don't want to start by shitting on MODOK, so let's start with talking about the characters. So in this movie we have an entire family of ant people, and they're all exactly the same. They're copy and paste the same version of the same card. If you pay attention, they're all super clever, they're all funny, so they're all quipping and stuff like that. Of course, we're used to that kind of stuff when it comes to the MCU, but also they're such good people to almost suicidal extents. And the worst example of this is Cassie, aka Scott's daughter in this movie here. She's represented as yet another like child prodigy. She's incredibly clever. She's able to create like revolutionary weapons in her basement, like almost every single other like teenager character or young adult character in the MCU. And that is starting to become really annoying. This is not really a spoiler, but there is this moment in the movie at the beginning where Scott is going to get his daughter out from jail because she was out protesting, and she basically like miniaturized one of the police cars. Just to tell you that this character is introduced to us as someone who is so incredibly good straight from the beginning, and she wants to try and teach her father to actually take this superhero thing seriously and to be a good superhero. So this is a third Ant-Man movie. This is like the 30th or whatever MCU movie, and we're still trying to teach the superhero how to be a superhero. I also think that Cassie was an excellent example of how to create a darker version of the nice person that she used to be when she was a child, mostly because she's been through so much trauma because of what happened in Infinity War and Endgame. We've got a character here whose father disappeared for so long, whose grandparents disappeared also for so long, and who basically was by herself with her mother during this entire time. Why would she need to be a nice person? You know what I mean? Like, very often when you have these troubled environments for teenagers or for children, they don't grow up well. And that was the perfect example of creating like a darker version of her, so that basically she would have something interesting to do when she's with Kang, for example, but it would have had some interesting dynamics with her father as well, creating some disruptions. But here, the only thing that they do in this film, they're trying to build character dynamics where they're just trying to out-nice each other. Someone is being nice, someone someone is being selfless and they're just competing on who is gonna be the nicest in the entire family, and that really sucks. It's such a boring thing to do, especially when you have a concept of a family of superheroes. Another thing that I really hated about this concept is that they're all people wearing suits most of the times, and they basically all have the same power sets, limitations. There is nothing interesting about them. They don't really stand out when it comes to other heroes as well.
Look, momentum, right? Jump, tap, right? One move, jump, tap.
I know how to do it, Dad.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Really? Because it didn't look like it from my end.
I messed up on the timing.
You've got one who can fly, one who has the suit, and another one who has the suit, and they have approximately the same types of powers, and there is nothing interesting about that. Just to tell you how, when it comes to the character development or the character arcs that these people are going through, it's complete and utter nonsense. And most of them don't actually have any type of character arc. Hank Pym, for example, is just hanging out in this movie. He doesn't have anything to do. His wife, whose name I can't remember because, as I said, these characters are all the same. All she does throughout the entire film is just keep information from the other main characters to create fake tension. Things that I absolutely hate when it comes to narrative like devices and stuff like that, because it's just unnerving. It's just incredibly boring, and you're just keeping the plot from getting interesting until you want it to get interesting, meaning that we have 30 minutes, an hour until we get actually into the character development and the motivations of certain characters, and specifically the villain. And this really sucks, and it's something that MCU movies have done quite often, but this time around it just tasted completely stale, mostly because there is no reason for her to keep all of that information for herself. If you spend 30 years somewhere, you have to talk about that kind of stuff with someone.
So you've been studying the quantum realm? Why didn't you ask me about it?
I tried, Mom. A lot. You never wanted to talk about it.
So it would have been interesting at least if they introduced the aspect that she told her husband, so Hank, but she made him promise not to tell anyone else. But at least it would have shown something about her personality, and it would have shown how their relationship was actually really strong, and they just didn't want to like trouble her daughter, for example, or even her husband, or even their niece with this amount of trauma. And that would have made sense. But just for her not to say anything, even though she spent so much time away from their family and the real world, just makes no sense at all. And it creates just a weird character that we just don't believe in. And all of the weird kind of plot twists that happens around this character here are just boring. For example, the Bill Murray cameo that he has is completely useless. His character doesn't have any personality at all. He's just playing himself, basically Bill Murray. He's playing that kind of like cool character that does well with women, that does weird things, the kind of character that he always played since basically the Ghostbusters age.
And all I have is my work. There's nothing else in my life.
Dr.
I meet you, and I say, my God, there's someone with the same problem I have.
Yes, we both had the same problem. You.
And it's just so boring. When you have a strong actor like that, and not to actually give him something to do, he's just standing there wearing like a really nice suit and just giving you exposition, is just incredibly boring. MODOK. Who thought this was a good idea? They keep making fun of him for the entire movie. It almost feels like Disney hates itself, or like this movie hates itself as well, to the point of like changing the tone constantly in between being incredibly serious and incredibly farcical, like Thor: Love and Thunder. That is one of the things that they share. It's really tonally inconsistent.
Thank you, Spider-Man!
And MODOK is the best example of that. It feels like this guy should not be in this movie. This guy should be like in a Guardians movie, or maybe even Thor: Love and Thunder. Even if you put it in that movie, like it would not have changed anything at the end of the day. Or it feels like this should be like in an animated version of the MCU. It should not be in the live action version.
And do you know what MODOK stands for?
Mental organism designed only
For killing. For killing.
It looks so incredibly bad, it's so incredibly stupid, you don't take him seriously ever, and they actually wrote like an entire character arc for this guy here, just because he is Darren from the first movie.
Emotional!
Oh, damn! And they're probably thinking like, oh, this is like the most clever thing we ever did as screenwriters. But no, it's just so stupid. It's an interesting thing that they reused that character there to do something different. But you could have said that about anyone. You could have put even Thanos and be like, oh, actually, I didn't really die. I just got squeezed into this weird suit and became a weapon of mass destruction. The worst thing about this is that they keep forcing him to open up his helmet so we can see his like incredibly ugly stretched out face. Who thought it was a good idea? Who? Tell me, so we can shoot at them, because it's awful. This is garbage, and it's the best example to show why this movie just doesn't make any sense at all, and it kind of like wants to head into different directions all at the same time. The best moments in this movie are the quietest moments, where characters actually talk to each other, connect to each other, try to communicate with each other, like using, for example, the red little liquid to understand each other's languages. Moments like flashbacks between Kang and Hank's wife, for example, where we get to understand how Kang got there and how basically she got stuck there as well, all the reasonings behind that. But those are the quiet moments that work really well, and we needed more of those at the end of the day. And also the problem with this movie here, it's all about setting up more things for the MCU, for the new phase to come. They have to set up Kang as a threat, but they also have to limit his power so that Ant-Man can defeat him at the end of the day.
Thought you could win. I don't have to win. We both just have to lose.
They need to tease the multiverse while also not tell us too much, because every single movie is probably going to be about that. And Loki season 2 is going to be about that as well. So the result is kind of like a Kang that is saying, oh, I'm the worst person you will ever meet. I'm the conqueror. I can do this and this and that. But he never actually does it. And when he does it, he mostly uses like CGI, like lasers to kill people that we don't really care about. The movie just feels very bloodless. It just feels like it's empty of meaning, empty of care, empty of stakes, mostly because we are in this incredibly small quantum realm and we haven't had the time to actually care about it in the way that we had the time to care about the TVA, for example, in the Loki season 1, and they really forced us to care about like the structure of timelines and keeping like everything in a box, you know what I mean? But they didn't do it with the quantum realm, and it's mostly because they just couldn't unleash Kang to its full potential, and it's a huge problem. And I think choosing Kang as a third villain for a third Ant-Man movie is just the worst decision ever at the end of the day, because he doesn't fit well with Scott/Ant-Man, especially if Scott doesn't want to change. He wants to remain like incredibly positive, funny, quirky guy. There is like a fight scene at the end of this movie that is like one of the worst choreographed fight scenes I've ever seen, where they're just like stepping on each other and giving like knee hits at each other, and it's the first time that we actually see some blood, even though like Kang killed so many people in the entire movie. It's the first time that we actually see that the hero is getting hurt, and it's in the stupidest scene ever. But there is a moment where Kang actually threatens Scott that he will kill Cassie multiple times, rewind time, and do it over and over again until basically he goes down there and gets the power source for him. They actually tried to squeeze in like the heist thing that was like a big part of basically the entire Ant-Man trilogy, but it doesn't really work, because when you're doing a heist, it means you're stealing something from someone. But the heist in this movie here, he's not stealing something from someone, he's just getting something back. So it's not a heist, it's literally just like a capture the flag. No, not even, because a capture the flag, you would need like an opponent who's actually trying to stop you from catching the flag. He just has to go down there and get it. And my question is, why doesn't he do it? Why does he just say that he's gonna do it and then not do it even once? Because this movie would have felt so much more powerful if we actually saw all the things that he was talking about. Can you imagine what it will feel like to actually him threaten Scott and do it there on the spot, to kill Cassie in front of our eyes over and over again? And also for the psychological and physical repercussion for Cassie to experience that. It would have been really interesting as character development for her. And they robbed us of that just because that they thought that the dialogue threats were enough to convince Scott to just give up everything and do what Kang wanted him to do. And it just sucks.
If you help me, I'm the man who can give you the one thing you want. You're an Avenger, and you have a daughter, but you've lost a lot of time. Like me, we can help each other with that.
This movie really shows once again the limitations of the MCU and the point that they don't really want to commit to doing interesting things with their characters. At the end of this movie, we kind of get the sense that Scott is about to sacrifice himself to save his family, but no, and it's actually a really interesting emotional moment because he's like, I don't have to win, we just have to both lose, which is something that is really well written at the end of the day. I like that line. But then Cassie somehow manages to open another portal, even though we have no idea how she did that, because from her angle, from her point of view, the technology that she created is just a radio. It's just a MODOK that managed to create a portal from the other direction. But she is not supposed to have any idea on how to create a portal to the quantum realm. And she does it in like 2 seconds. It appears behind them and they're like, okay, fair enough, so I guess we can go home. So the sacrifice was worthless. The tease of the sacrifice was worthless. And all the emotional turmoil that we just went through during the fight with Kang, it felt like it was pointless because there were no consequences. Same thing that they did with Thor: Love and Thunder when they showed Natalie Portman being happy and going to like a weird paradise. No, it's just weird.
You know, the good news is you're Asgardians. So if you die, you'll end up in Valhalla.
Oh my god, go away.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
You can't have it both ways. You have to make choices. And that is mainly problem why I'm getting always more disappointed with the MCU movies. Because they're not actually taking any of the drastic choices that they should do to create a strong movie that actually ages well. The Ant-Man movies, I never rewatched them when I used to do like my MCU marathons to get ready for Infinity War and Endgame and that kind of stuff. I never used to watch them because they were just so incredibly pointless. They felt pointless. And now they created a movie that its concept is not pointless at all, but it still ends up being pointless because of how badly written it is. Okay, let's see if I've forgotten any things. Talking about the characters, there is something interesting that Jeremy Jones, he's another like reviewer that I follow, he has said something quite interesting about the fact that everyone now can be super smart. As I said before, we're not like in the Tony Stark era anymore where it actually took a lot of effort to create something that was incredibly rudimentary. Now it doesn't take any effort at all to create the most revolutionary thing ever. And it's really funny because this created another thought in my head about Nepo babies, because in this kind of phase of the MCU, we're setting up like daughters, sons to take the helm of Black Panther, Ant-Man, and all of those other superheroes instead of like giving it to just normal everyday people. And this is something where they're actually actively breaking the MCU and the most important thing when it comes to relating to superheroes and the idea that almost anyone could be a superhero. Weird things are gonna happen to you to give you the powers, yes, but at the core of your personality, you are that selfless, you want to protect and save people. But here we're going towards a new phases where most of the new young Avengers, they're just sons, daughters, and related anyways to the main characters.
Your daughter built a subatomic Hubble telescope in a basement.
What do I have to do to make people fucking listen to me?
Meaning that we're taking out that familiar aspect of anyone can be a superhero and we're just turning all of these new superheroes into Nepo babies. And I thought it was an interesting like deconstruction that I've never seen anyone talk about. So here, we talked about it. I want to talk about Kang once again, which is the only good part of this film here. The performance by Jonathan Majors as well. He's incredible. And if we talk about once again the idea of empty threats that he throws at the main characters. Can you imagine if Kang just annihilated, killed everyone in the quantum realm, and then he just died in the same way that we see in the film? The ants come helping out our superheroes and the superheroes just do everything goes on in the exact same way. But we had the one little thing where Kang is like, it doesn't matter if you beat me because I still won. I conquered this place, I killed everyone, and you lose. Because by killing me, you don't change anything because there are millions versions of me which are way worse than me. And then we live like as superheroes like in this weird limbo where they literally just motivated an entire species of people to revolt against Kang, to take back their power, and they all died for it. No one is actually there to reap the good results of Kang being destroyed. And that would have been an incredible message for war movies just in general, and the idea that you always have to go straight on and fight, and it doesn't matter how many people die, sacrifice themselves, because at the end of the day, someone will survive to actually rebuild something. No one survives at the end. It would have been incredibly interesting. Can you imagine like a darker version of this movie that actually made sense? And not like a movie that ends where Scott is like doing his really happy walk walk in the street talking about how, oh my god, maybe I killed Kang and I shouldn't have killed Kang because Kang wanted to do something. And we don't know exactly what he wanted to do, but we killed him anyways. Ah, who cares? How can you end a movie like that? And this is where my point about this not being an Ant-Man movie and being an Ant-Man movie at the same time, and how these two concepts don't work together at all at the end of the day. Then we've got the mid-credit scene, which is once again incredibly cringy, mostly because it almost looks like it was shot like San Diego Comic-Con. The three main Kangs that we see are like wearing, like one looks like an Egyptian like pharaoh, another one looks like almost like a blackface version of Jonathan Majors. I don't know exactly like what type of Kang he is, and the other one I don't even remember at the end of the day. And basically they're saying that they called all the Kangs in this big stadium, and you just see them like shouting and doing things like that.
I'm Kang! Witness everything!
Yes, I am Kang! King! And just it looked so bad, and this like sets up expectations for us, right? For the MCU, for the new phase. So basically the MCU is gonna be Scooby-Doo. Every single new film, every single new episode of this phase, we're gonna be going against a new type of Kang who's gonna die and be replaced by a new type of Kang. That's basically what they're teasing, that's basically what they're building up to, right?
Finding that missing armored car after all these years. But who are these two?
Don't you recognize them, Sheriff?
Wow. Those are Kang 1 and Kang 2. I really didn't see that coming.
And this is not gonna be cool. This is exactly why the multiverse will kill the MCU as we know it, because we will lose the stakes. Even if Jonathan Majors manages to make us care about all these Kangs in different ways in every single film or TV show, it will not matter at the end of the day, because for superheroes, it will feel like they were just killing like the same person over and over again. And it will be bad. It will be so bad. And it's such a bad thing to reveal this moment here in this movie, especially knowing that this is just the beginning of a huge saga. You should have done this way later. You shouldn't have done it now. Maybe you could have done it like the thing with the three Kangs that imprisoned the other Kang that we met in this film. But to see that entire stadium of CGI Kangs was just once again one of the cringiest things I've ever seen. I'm honestly done talking about this movie. Like, I was so disappointed. Like, my face was like this for the entire movie. I was not having fun, and literally felt like my head was about to explode just by the amount of stuff that I wanted to talk about and criticize when it comes to this film. No, actually that was it. Those are all the critiques I had about Ant-Man and the Wasp / Quantumania, whatever the fuck. For the last scene, I mean, we get to have a peek into what Loki season 2 is gonna be about, and I don't know, I'm not excited about the future, because at the end of the day they're doing this over and over again. I don't even remember the last time I was actually satisfied by an MCU movie. Werewolf by Night maybe, but it wasn't an actual movie, it was just like a weird long episode of like a special. Maybe Eternals, because even Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, even though I enjoyed it, I could feel that it was just yet another like MCU multiverse thing. I actually really liked Eternals, even though of course it raised so many weird questions about the future of the MCU and the past of the MCU as well. I thought that it was a good standalone movie, and it looked different and it felt different as well. Is it Infinity War and Endgame? Is it really like the last time that we had a incredibly good, like well written, well performed, not cringy movie in the MCU was back with Endgame? It's insane. It's really insane. And now that we're starting a new phase with something like this, it's even more insane. Anyways, I'm done ranting about this. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. If you loved it, enjoyed it, thought it was okay. If you forgive the MCU / Disney once again for making yet another mediocre movie, or maybe if you're just gonna stop maybe to go to the cinema and be excited about the new projects coming out. Let me know, because honestly my expectations are lower and lower. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to Kang himself, and a new version of Kang, and a new version of Kang, and a new version of Kang, to all the Kangs, and especially to the actor who's portraying him, who is the only reason that this movie works. If this movie had like a Thor 2 type of villain, if this movie had only MODOK, wow, this would be officially one of the worst MCU movies ever. Anyways, I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Let me address the elephant in the room. I've heard a lot of chatter out there asking why I didn't shrink down, go in, and kill Thanos in a really creative way. First of all, gross. Secondly, it's much more complicated than that. Allow me to explain.
If only we had the time.